Here I would like to talk about some long questions about functions of money. On page 2 of the notes, we have already learned the 4 functions of money and their explanation. For questions related to functions of money, there are 2 types. The first one is just like 7.3. The question starting from the first line has clearly mentioned what the people do. For this type of question, you can just state the function of money and use the explanation on page 2 of the notes to explain. The second type of question would be like 7.4, and I will talk about it later. Let's look at the question. The question has mentioned that the domestic currency, T-dollar, has depreciated a lot. Then what will the people do? The question has already mentioned. Some shops in country T quoted the prices in US dollar instead of T-dollar. Why these shops quoted the prices in US dollar instead of T-dollar? Because of the depreciation. If they expect the depreciation to continue, actually when they receive the money, then they will suffer a loss because of a decrease in the purchasing power. Then in that case, some shops would refuse to quote the price in US dollar, in T-dollar, and they will quote the price in other foreign currencies. And clearly, this statement should be related to unit of account, and you can just explain using the table on page 2 of the notes. The second point that has been mentioned in the question is that some shops in black markets refuse to accept T-dollar. Then this is clearly related to medium of exchange. And the third one is that some citizens bought foreign currencies to safeguard their assets, because if the depreciation continues, they will suffer a loss because of a drop in the purchasing power, and this will affect the store of value. Let's go to the second type of question, 7.4. 7.4, the situation is just the same as 7.3. However, the question hasn't mentioned what the people do. Then in that case, you need to mention what happens first and what the people do first. And here comes the statement that you have to answer for this type of question. You have to mention that some people or multinational firms may refuse to quote the prices in T-dollar. As I have mentioned before, if there is depreciation, if the depreciation continues, then after the shops receive the local currency, they will suffer a loss because of a decrease in their purchasing power. And that's why they will refuse to quote the prices in T-dollar. However, whether we answer some people or multinational firms depends on whether both the local firms and multinational firms, that means the foreign firms, will be affected, or only the foreign firms are affected. If both the local firms and foreign firms are affected, then we will say some people. If only the foreign firms are affected, then we will say multinational firms. Then in this case, think about the local firms first. If they sell something to other people and they receive local currency, would it be affected by the depreciation? Actually not, if they are not going to purchase any foreign goods, because they do not need to exchange for foreign currency to run their business. However, for the foreign firms, if they receive local currency from the local people, afterwards they have to exchange for foreign currency, right? Then because of the depreciation, when they use the local currency to exchange for foreign currency, they can exchange for a smaller amount of foreign currency. Then their purchasing power will decrease, and they will be affected. Then in this case, if local firms are not affected, but foreign firms are affected, then we will say that some multinational firms may refuse to quote the prices in T-dollar, and they will receive to accept T-dollar during the purchase and sale. Then in this case, we will add these 2 sentences to answer the question. And except these 2 sentences, we just mention the functions of money as usual, and use the explanation on page 2 of the notes to answer as usual. And except these 2 functions, as I've mentioned before, with the depreciation, this may affect the purchasing power, which means the store of value. However, there are 2 possible answers that we can use. The first possible answer is that we may mention that the purchasing power decreases in terms of the quantity of goods and services purchased. or in terms of the quantity of foreign goods and services purchased. The difference is that the first one, we haven't mentioned whether the goods are local goods or foreign goods. That means we refer to both the local goods and foreign goods. The second one, we will only talk about the foreign goods. That means the local goods are not affected. Then, whether we should answer the first one or the second one depends on whether both the local goods and foreign goods are affected. If both are affected, we use the first one. If only the foreign goods are affected, we use the second one. Then let us look at the situation. We have depreciation of the local currency. Then may I ask you this question. Would the price of local goods in terms of the local currency change? As we have learned before, this price doesn't change. If we use the local currency to buy local stuff, we just pay the same because we do not need to exchange for foreign currency. Then the depreciation or even appreciation won't affect the price of local goods. However, to buy the foreign goods, if we pay local currency, because of the depreciation, the foreign goods will be more expensive and the price increases. And that means if we have the same amount of local currency, we will buy the same amount of local goods, but we will buy a smaller amount of foreign goods. Then in this situation, we will choose the second one because only the foreign goods are affected. And the word foreign is very, very, very important. And of course, you also need to state the function of money, which is store of value, because it mentions the purchasing power.